Emily had always loved train rides. The rhythmic clattering of wheels against rails and the ever-changing landscape outside her window gave her a sense of serenity she couldn't find elsewhere. But that changed the night she boarded the midnight train, a service she hadn't known existed until she saw it listed on a dusty, almost forgotten schedule at the back of the station. Running exceptionally late from work and desperate to get home, Emily decided to take it, even though the station was nearly deserted and there was no train operator to be seen. She found it odd, but reasoned it was a new automated service. Upon boarding, she found the train empty. The emptiness didn't bother her. It was past midnight after all. However, what she found unsettling was the dim lighting and how each car seemed to be from a different era. One appeared to be from the 40s, complete with Art Deco furnishings. Another seemed to be a 70s relic, shag carpet and all. Despite the weirdness, Emily settled into her seat, thinking she would soon be home. But as the train started to move, things took a surreal turn. First, her phone lost service. Then the train didn't stop at any of the familiar stations. Instead, it rolled through unfamiliar landscapes, twisted forests, barren deserts, and eerie cityscapes that seemed out of time and place. Panic rising, Emily tried to walk between cars, but the door to the next car wouldn't open. As she pulled at the handle, she heard whispers, a cacophony of voices coming from all around her, yet nowhere in particular. The words were in languages she couldn't recognize, murmuring promises and warnings she couldn't understand. That's when she saw it, the shadowy figure at the other end of the car, moving closer each time the train plunged into a tunnel and darkness enveloped the cabin. Each time the lights returned, the figure was closer, but never close enough to discern its features. Fear gripping her, Emily realized she had to get off the train. But how? Just as she was contemplating pulling the emergency brake, she felt the train slowing down. It came to a halt at a station she had never seen before. The platform was empty, illuminated by a single flickering light. Seeing no other option, Emily stepped off the train, only to see it immediately vanish into the night. She found herself alone on the platform, but not for long. A figure stepped into the light, an older woman who looked oddly familiar. "Emily, you don't belong here. Go back," the woman said, pushing a ticket into Emily's hand. Confused, Emily looked at the ticket. It was dated 30 years into the future. She looked up, but the woman had disappeared. Yet, in that moment, she knew. The woman was her, from a future she didn't yet understand. A train pulled into the station, this one modern and well lit. Emily boarded it and found herself back in familiar territory, finally stopping at her usual station. She hurried home, the ticket from the future still clenched in her hand, a mysterious memento of a journey she could neither explain nor forget. Every town has its legends, and for the residents of Redwood Glen, it was the story of Old Man Whitaker's shop, the keeper of lost things. The shop, set at the end of a cobblestone street, was an enigma. Its dusty windows revealed little of the treasures inside, and the door bore a sign that read, "By appointment only." The interior was a maze of aisles and shelves, each teeming with items that whispered stories of days gone by. One autumn afternoon, Clara, a journalist for the local paper, decided to explore the legend. Her grandmother's locket had vanished after her passing, and Clara was desperate to find it. Guided by the town's tales, she found herself outside the mysterious store. Inside, the air was thick with the musk of old books and wooden cabinets. Old Man Whitaker, with his wispy hair and deep-set eyes, stood behind the counter, seemingly waiting for her. "You've come for the locket," he stated, more than asked. Taken aback, Clara nodded. "How did you know?" Whitaker merely smiled, gesturing for her to follow. As they ventured deeper into the shop, Clara recognized items that belonged to various townspeople: a watch, a diary, even a childhood toy she'd lost years ago. They finally arrived at a pedestal showcasing her grandmother's locket. Overwhelmed with relief, Clara reached for it, but Whitaker's hand shot out, stopping her. "There's a price," he murmured. Confused, Clara responded, "I'll pay whatever you ask." Whitaker shook his head. "Not money, a memory. The locket's worth a cherished one." Before Clara could protest, Whitaker touched her temple. Memories flashed before her eyes: her grandmother's laughter, the smell of her perfume, and then one particular memory began to fade. It was a day when her grandmother had taught her to bake, passing down a family recipe. The joy, the warmth, the taste of the cookies all began to evaporate. As the memory dissipated, Clara felt the cold weight of the locket in her hand. "You see," Whitaker began, "this shop isn't just for lost items, it's a haven for lost memories too. I give lost items a place, and in return, they bring me memories, sustaining my existence." Tears streamed down Clara's face as the magnitude of her loss settled in. She left the store clutching the locket, its emotional value now forever altered. Weeks later, Clara wrote an article for her newspaper, warning residents of the true cost of reclaiming lost possessions from Whitaker's shop. Many heeded her words, but for some, the allure of lost items was too great. As for Whitaker, he continued to thrive in his shop, a keeper not just of objects, but also of the memories they extracted, a silent witness to the town's forgotten tales. Josh was an avid fan of late-night radio shows. Working the graveyard shift as a security guard, he found the eerie tales and conspiracy theories to be the perfect companions for long, lonely hours. But one night, the radio aired something that still haunts him to this day. It was a night like any other, quiet and uneventful, as Josh patrolled the halls of an old office building. He carried his portable radio, tuned in to his favorite late-night show, Whispers After Dark. However, that night something was off. The usually smooth voice of the host, Mark, sounded shaky, as if he were nervous about something. As the show progressed, Mark began talking about a real and urgent threat, describing an anonymous letter he'd received that contained information too chilling to ignore. The letter claimed that a dark entity was stalking various locations around the city, and anyone who heard its voice would be in grave danger. Mark didn't specify what the entity was, stating only that the letter had contained a warning signal, a high-pitched screech, to be on the lookout for. Josh was intrigued but skeptical, attributing the tale to late-night theatrics. That was until he turned a corner and heard it, a screeching sound coming from the radio. Just then, the overhead lights flickered and went out, plunging the hallway into darkness. Feeling his heart pound in his chest, Josh pulled out his flashlight and turned it on. The beam revealed nothing out of the ordinary. As he began to breathe easier, thinking it was just a coincidence, he heard something that made his blood run cold. A whispering voice coming from the radio, saying, "I see you, Josh." Panicked, Josh started to run, his flashlight beam dancing erratically over the walls. He reached the security room and locked the door behind him. On the CCTV monitors, he saw nothing unusual, but when he looked closer at one of the screens, he spotted a shadowy figure standing in the hallway where he'd just been. The figure seemed to be staring directly at the camera, and then it vanished. Just as quickly as it had disappeared, the lights came back on. Shaken, Josh reported the incident, but avoided mentioning the voice on the radio. His colleagues checked the building and found nothing, attributing the power outage to faulty wiring. But Josh couldn't shake the feeling that something supernatural had occurred. Over the next few days, Josh was plagued by nightmares, hearing that same whispering voice in his dreams. He stopped listening to late-night radio shows and requested a transfer to day shifts, vowing never to work alone at night again. Meanwhile, the radio host, Mark, announced a sudden hiatus of Whispers After Dark, citing personal reasons. The show never returned to the airwaves, leaving listeners to speculate on what had transpired. Josh knows that he'll never have answers, but the experience left him with an indelible sense of dread, a constant reminder that some things are better left unheard. Well, there you have it, folks. A tale that might just keep you up tonight. If you dare to hear more stories that go bump in the night, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you won't miss out on any of our haunting adventures. Give this video a thumbs up if it sent a chill down your spine, and share it with those who could use a little scare. Remember, some stories are just tales, while others, well, let's just say you might want to keep that nightlight on. See you in the next video, if you dare. Until then, sweet nightmares.